We back, we live. Everything Suspect Podcast. It's your boy Billy D. You know how we do. Like, subscribe. Let's get to it. Today's topic, or this episode's topic, is: will MLK be canceled in 2027? Yes. I'm talking about Martin Luther King Jr., the man, the myth, the legend, and one of my heroes. Will he be canceled in February of 2027? Why do I say that? Why am I thinking that? Where are we going? I watched a documentary on MLK Day, and it was called MLK and the FBI, or versus the FBI, or whatever, right? It gave me some insight into the man that he was that I didn't know. So what is this documentary about? It's about what the FBI was finding about Martin Luther King when they were wiretapping him. So what did I take from this documentary? I've always been a firm believer that black people made the most advancement in the 60s in our entire history as being in America, or in American history, right? The most that we did was in between 1960 and 1968, right? Just my opinion, right? And the only reason why I feel like that is because those were the years where we got the most legislation passed that helped black folks in this country, that kind of removed us from redlining and voter suppression tactics and things of that nature. And able to get into the White House and have somebody sign something saying you are protected. I haven't seen that since. I didn't see it when it happened. I was before my time, and I haven't seen it since. What I learned from the documentary about MLK is you have to have such a following and have different sets of society love you and band around you in order for you to get anything done politically. And then you still have to be in good. You still have to you still have to have a great working relationship with politicians. And he was magical at that. He was able to get three sets. He was able to garnish relationships between three sets of people. First, the black church, because he was a preacher. Second, the black folks that didn't go to church. He was able to bring those folks together, right? And then that garnered power, and he was a non-violent person, which, you had your Black Panthers, you had Nation of Islam, who all seemed like threats in so many different ways that it seemed as though if the White House was going to have a relationship with anybody from the black community, the only, person that fit the bill would be MLK. So that's how we were able to get the Civil Rights Act signed and the Voting Rights Act and all of these things in such a short time, because he had a great relationship with those in the White House, i.e. Kennedy before he was assassinated, and LBJ, and he had orchestrated amazing marches. He was an organizer of people. He was a leader of men. He was an amazing speaker. He had all of the tangibles that you need to just be great at, getting stuff done and getting people to rally around you. And not since then do I believe black folks have ever been able to organize and mobilize the way Martin Luther King did for our people in the 60s, which is also the reason why I believe we aren't getting anything that we want done now, is because we are unable to organize and mobilize and do things to get stuff done to be looked at as a sect of society that needs to be addressed by our politicians, by our Senate, by our White House, even with a woman of color in there as the vice president. But we'll leave that for another day. So everything was gravy for MLK when the black folks was loving him, black church was loving him, and even Kennedy was loving him. But there was only one person that didn't like him at all, and that was J. Edgar Hoover. And J. Edgar Hoover was the I think it was the founder, but and don't give me the line, but I think it was the founder of the FBI. But no matter what he was, he ran the FBI, and that was the one thing that he and Kennedy and LBJ did not have in common, was he did not like MLK, and they were cool with him. So it was always this weird balancing act of, you know, J. Edgar Hoover trying to get people to dislike him, especially the president and especially the vice president. So J. Edgar Hoover believed that the biggest threat to national security in the 60s was the organization and mobilization of black folks. And more importantly, the most dangerous person in this world would be the person who could lead and organize these people as such. So for him, with him thinking that that's the biggest threat to national security, he put all of his power into bringing down Martin Luther King Jr. How did he do it? What he started doing was he was tapping his phone. Well, he was tapping a friend's phone of Martin Luther King. And at the time, our biggest deterrent as far as overseas conflict was communism. Martin Luther King was friends with a known communist. So that gave the FBI the ability to start tapping his phone and following him and all this stuff, because he could be a threat to society because he's cool with communists. And it was also something that J. Edgar Hoover tried to get the president and the vice president to look at, like, yeah, y'all think this dude cool, but he cool with communists, and we in a conflict with Russia, and and you get into the the conflict in Cuba, and why we're still not in Cuba over this time. So J. Edgar Hoover starts recording a gentleman who is cool with MLK, and as the story goes, MLK goes to his house to stay, even though he told the president and everybody else, okay man, I'll unfriend him, click, right? He didn't do it. So on a wiretap, while MLK is at the guy's house, MLK starts talking to other chicks that's not Coretta, right? And I mean, the calls are very, very explicit to let them tell it. They didn't show them, they didn't play them or anything like that. You know what I'm saying? They had a whole lot of redacted papers that they would show in the documentary, but they never went all the way in on the homie, right? In the documentary and in real life, right? So this is just my philosophy. I believe that so what they wanted to do was make him step down, and if not step down, make him commit suicide. That was the whole thing, right? But the crazy thing was, they was sending him, hey, we know that you are talking to women, we know that you have extramarital relationships, you know what I'm saying, and you're a preacher, and this is foul, and you shouldn't do this, and da 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 da. They let it be known that he was being tapped, right? Didn't stop him out, didn't stop Martin, did not deter Martin. He kept on doing his thing, right? And then they start saying, look man, if you don't come out and tell everybody what you're doing, you need to kill yourself, because we gonna drop it if you don't drop it. Doesn't do it and they don't drop it. I have a philosophy on that. I believe they felt if they could get him to self-destruct, nobody would look at them as bad guys. And I also believe that's the reason why they had all of this recording, all these recordings, and they wouldn't release them, because they would look like bad guys. No matter what they do, they're going to look like bad guys, right? Whether he commits suicide because of it or whatever, like they feel like they can cover everything else up as long as it doesn't come back to them. So that's the reason why they never released the tapes. But they did give them to black preachers, which is an issue, right? Because I believe the ending of Martin Luther King's life was when all the people who loved him, the black church, the black community, and the government, once they turned their backs on him, all of these things, that was the end of his life. that ended him, literally and physically. And this is on the documentary, but I still say what the FBI did was all alleged, just so this pod doesn't get taken down, right? So what happens next, right? They give it to the preachers. They're waiting for something to happen, a ball to drop. Nothing happens. Then they gave it to and that's them trying to make the church turn on him. One of his sets of people that gave him power. Then they send the tapes to Coretta, right? Which is just ruining his family, right? Or so you would think. She don't go nowhere. She 10 toes down. She holds it down for Martin, you know what I'm saying? And salute to the OG, right? But then tensions boil between him and J. Edgar Hoover. And now J. Edgar Hoover's just coming out in papers and saying, how in the world would y'all allow a dude who is supposed to be a family man, supposed to be a preacher, supposed to be this, supposed to be that, be a liar and a cheater and this and that, and this in papers? And you got all, white America who do not like black Americans are going in on Martin Luther King, saying like he's a cheater and he doesn't he doesn't do this, he doesn't do that, you know what I'm saying? He's a hypocrite, you know what I'm saying? We can't have that kind of preacher in the church, or we can't have that kind of preacher with that much power, he's corrupt, right? Everything to break this man down, right? I never seen this before. It was crazy to see all the stuff that they were doing. So he's just overtly trying to ruin the guy, right? When he couldn't do it behind the scenes, and he couldn't get his wife to leave him, and he couldn't, you know what I'm saying? Now he just does this. So then the war begins. It changed Martin's focus, right? And this is a very important arc in his life, because even though he's gotten LBJ to sign in the Civil Rights Act and all of these other pieces of legislation to help and protect black folks, he was starting to open his mind up to more than just a black American, or more than just the black American life, right? He was starting to see what was happening in Vietnam. And he was starting to see all the money that was going towards the Vietnam War. Money that he was promised by LBJ would help poor black folks in America. So it wasn't until he was doing the math, saying like, wait a minute, like, well, LBJ promised that he was going to help me with this, the Poor People's Campaign of 1968 and all of this stuff. But I'm looking and I'm just seeing more money, more American money go to Vietnam, go to the war. And that's when he realized he was never going to get the money that was promised to him by the president. So though, what does the good brother do? He calls it out. He calls out the inhumanity of war. He calls out the things that are happening overseas. But he's doing it from an aspect that he knows his people aren't going to get what they need. But it makes him look like an apologist for communism. So it gives J. Edgar Hoover exactly what he needs. And what he needed was for the president to say, I don't like this dude no more. We not cool no more. I'm sending people to war. And you supposed to be my homie in the States, supposed to be my liaison between black folks, and you sitting there telling everybody on TV that I listen to you that what's going on in the war ain't right. We need to be taking care of home, and what's happening in Vietnam is foul. So that makes it look like you're against the war, which means you are an apologist for communists, which means you are an enemy of the state now, right? So he loses his political power. But guess what happens at that same time? Black folks are mad. The same black folks that love him, that pushed him to the point that he was in. They're mad now because they're like, why are you focused on the war when we got a war going on right here at home? We ain't done with this war. We ain't. How in the world do you lead us to march and lead us to do all of these things, and then when we're at the height of our power, you go and focus on something that ain't got nothing to do with you, bruh. You supposed to be right here with us. And that made black people turn on Martin Luther King. So here we got, he loses the black folks, loses some black church folks too. Tried to make him lose his wife, lost his political power, and that was it. That was it. The Poor People's Campaign of 1968 was the thing that was going to feed black folks. And that's what he was trying to go for, but black folks couldn't see it, or some black folks couldn't see that that's what he was trying to do. He saw that the money that was going to take to fund that campaign was being used in the war. Black folks couldn't see that far. Some black folks couldn't see that far. So, marriage on the rocks, questionable as a family man and a preacher, no political power. And he goes to Memphis to have a conference to help out a garbage strike or something that was going on there, and he's assassinated after everybody turned on him. But in the end, and I mean in the end of the documentary, they say in the year 2027, February to be exact, all of these recordings of him I'm about to say sexting, come on man, his phone sex, all of these crazy encounters that he had, that do not put him in the best light, they are going to be able to be released in February of 2027. So my question was, will he get canceled? I'm watching Hugh Hefner and they have a documentary on him right now. And in this documentary, all these women, all these bunnies is coming out and saying how like abusive he was and the trauma that they went through, and not knocking the trauma. But what I will say about that is that there was a reality show with some of these same women who were living their best lives during the show. Somehow now he's a monster. Women that would not leave his side. And I know we got Stockholm syndrome and abuse and all that stuff, but he's canceled now. In his grave, Hugh Hefner's canceled. From women who loved him while he was here. Some women who loved him while he was here. He's out of here. Or at least they're trying to make it to be that. Bill Cosby, done. Out of here. Harvey Weinstein, done. Out of here. Would it be American to release these tapes, drag Martin Luther King through the mud, cancel this man during Black History Month? I don't know, man. I don't know. What you think? Everything Suspect Podcast. Like, subscribe. I'll see y'all next time. Peace.